right, everybody. 3, 2, 1, go!
Hey everybody, welcome to the Universe of Magic podcast. I am your co-host, but I'm actually leading today because John is looking for his darn phone again. So he's not going to be with us today. So you guys have me as your host, but I do have the wonderful Alyssa, my co-host, with me. And we have a guest today. Alyssa, you want to introduce our guest?
I am so excited she's here today. Thank you again so much for agreeing to join this craziness. But Kristin, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me. Obviously, I will let you all know it's my very first podcast. Never done a recording like this before. So if I get a little nervous and talk a little fast, that's why. But I'm so happy to be here and to be a part of Moments of Magic Travel. I don't know, I can't remember how long you guys have been around, but I just started in 2020. So I'm relatively new to the agency. But I've been a big fan of Disney my entire life. Actually, my husband and I got engaged at Disney in 2012. So ever since then, we've just been in love with Disney, and our kids, love it too. So we just have a great time.
And I love that piece of art you have in the background.
Yes.
Somebody went to the art festival.
So this was actually our first purchase many years ago. He is our favorite artist, and if you don't know him, he has a couple other very large paintings. He has World Showcase.
That's the one I have.
Yep, we have one of those, and we also have the castle, Cinderella's castle piece.
My World Showcase is right here. The compressed World Showcase, and I guess I call that kind of like anime World Showcase. It's awesome.
Cool.
It's really cool. Yep. So he's one of our favorite, and we actually got to meet him. Was it last year during the art festival, and had him sign a couple pieces for us. So
love the art.
We love it. So
it's kind of bittersweet because it just ended, and tomorrow is the first day of the Flower and Garden Festival.
Woo!
So my son is doing the Disney College program right now, and he picked up a shift tomorrow. He normally works a gate at Animal Kingdom, but he picked up a shift at Epcot tomorrow to be there for the first day.
Fun.
So I'm hoping somebody gets a picture of him tomorrow. I got a couple clients at the park tomorrow. So awesome to have you, Kristin. Before I forget, we are powered by Moments of Magic Travel. All of us here are travel agents, and we're going to give you guys our socials and our information here as we get toward the end of the call. But right now, let's get into it, right? Today, we're going to be talking about running, and we're going to be talking about the Disney angle of running, or the call it Disney. What is it? Disney Run? Is that what they call it? RunDisney. RunDisney aspect. And
as you can tell, Jeff is a novice on RunDisney.
They all have those 26.2 stickers on their car, and I have the 0.0. I'm really good out of the gate, but I'm not good on lasting very long when it comes to road races. So give me P90X, give me Insanity any day. But these girls, I'm sure, are going to try to talk me into doing one of these, half marathons or marathons. Have you guys both done both the full marathons and the half?
Well, Kristin is even crazier because she's done the dope.
I've done dopey.
Oh, is it true that once you get past a certain phase, you go into what I've heard called the runner's high, where you don't even really realize that you're, starting to tire out? I mean, I've had some friends that say they've hit that runner's high before, and they felt like they could run 30 miles.
Yes and no.
No. Is it a myth or not?
I feel like, Kristin, you probably agree with. There's definitely a runner's wall that you hit that you aren't sure how you're going to continue to go, but somehow your legs keep moving. But then the runner's high is that feeling you get when you feel amazing at the end of a run, and you probably feel like you could go do it all over again.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would say there's a little bit of runner's high, but it's very early in the races and at certain parts of the races. And I'll kind of point out, like when we talk about some of the other stuff, there's some times in RunDisney that there's some definite runner's high. And then, like you said, that runner's wall, and I've hit them all.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it. I would love to know how Run Disney was started. I mean, what is the history with it? Because obviously it's becoming bigger and bigger every single year. It seems like they're adding more races into the schedule every single year. I remember, 10, 15 years ago having dead periods at Disney World, but there really isn't that anymore because they have filled this so much because of some of the Run Disney races. So why don't you ladies tell me a little bit about the history of it from what you guys know? I mean,
Yeah.
theme weekends and all that stuff.
It's funny. I was recently, I think it's that documentary on Disney Plus. They talk a little bit about it, where that for the first full marathon happened back in, I think it was 94. And if you watch a video of it, it's literally just a clump of people who, like, the horn blows and they all just go. And like, that's it. Whereas it is quite transformed over the years, where it's such an organized event. You have corrals for a group of people that go at a time. It's not everybody free for all. So, but I was looking, it's so interesting that they started with the marathon. That's all they had in the beginning. And then slowly over time, they added the half marathon, and then they actually added a 5K before the 10K. And then there's been so many different themes over the years. And I was looking at the list, and it was like funny. There were a couple I never heard of or realized. Like, Disney used to have like some version of a triathlon apparently within Run Disney too. So, so it's been since 94. And then the weekends have changed. Huh? Yeah. Wild. And so something we can talk about, but if you have done the version of the race every single year since its inception, you are a perfect fill in the blank, whatever race you do. And so there's some perfect marathoners out there who did 94 and every year since then. So, and it's like a big designation in the Run Disney community if you've done that. So, it's been around a while, and I feel like I didn't get into Run Disney until I think it was 2013, I want to say. How early, Kristin, did you get into it?
I started in 2014 was my first race. Yeah.
Yeah, so about around the same time. So
and they started with the hardest race, the 26.2, right off the bat.
No.
And then
oh, Disney did.
But
Disney did. Yeah.
Disney
did not.
Yeah.
And then they've added, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I did a little research before this, but the 26.2, you actually run through all 4 parks, right? Correct. And then the half marathon, you go through 2 parks, and then
Depends.
Isn't it? And then the 10K and 5K, how do those races work? Do you run through the parks at all?
Usually the 5K is going to be, lately, I should say, in my experience, since 14, it's been around Epcot.
Okay.
And then the 10K, depending on the weekend, typically is a lot of Epcot and around that area. I don't know prior to 14 what their race courses are, because that was kind of the excitement every year was, okay, what's the course look like this year? How are they going to change it? What are we running through? Are we running through this park first or that park first? Are we running behind the scenes? There's a few places behind the scenes in Disney you wouldn't even know existed unless you did Run Disney or were a cast member. So, which is really cool too.
Yeah.
So there's 4 races, or is there more than that?
Currently, there's 4 race weekends. So, but they have evolved over time. They've changed over time. So if you go calendar-wise, if you go Run Disney season-wise, you start in November with Wine and Dine. That's been around for quite a while now. January is, and so we were kind of talking pre-show about this. Wine and Dine, the theme has kind of always been different. So there's no real consistent theme there. So they had Villains a couple years ago that, Kristin, you got to do the virtual version of that. This year they're saying it's going to be Encanto themed for the half marathon. We don't know yet what the other ones are. So that kind of always changes. You have January, which is regular marathon. So that's, the classic, the Fab Five, essentially. Then you have Princess Weekend. It's all like women's empowerment. Men can run too, but it's all about the princesses. And then the new one that they have in April, is that right? Is Springtime Surprise, which is essentially, you don't know what you're going to get. So this year they're doing Pixar. Last year they brought back some really old races they had retired. So, and then who knows what it'll be next year. But that's the Run Disney season. Starts in November, goes through April. Thank goodness they don't do a summer one because I feel like everybody would be dropping like flies.
And,
So,
and those are all the theme weekends. Now they have it at Disneyland too. Don't they have Marvel over there?
So they just we just had registration for Disneyland. I'm all set for that half
woo!
marathon in 2024. That was quite the experience getting into that one. But yeah, it looks like this year is going to be kind of a retro throwback Disney based on the picture or theming, we've seen so far. And I think they actually said something about like Mickey Mouse for the half, Mickey and Minnie maybe for the half, Donald and Goofy maybe for the 10K. Like they've kind of given us a little peek of what could come, but it sounds like it's going to be like the Fab Five theming, maybe a little kickback to the old days as they bring back that race. So, because that race has been gone for
since
quite a few years, right?
2018, I want to say.
2018, yeah.
And so this was pre-COVID. They stopped that because they were doing they were opening Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland. They had all that construction, and then I think they had some issues with the city of Anaheim.
Yeah.
So this is the first time in, I guess it'll be 6 years by that point.
6 years, yeah.
Well, I would imagine, unlike Disney World, Disneyland, you have to run through some of Greater Anaheim because it's a much smaller footprint, right? So probably more logistics for them to do those races. But
sense. you brought out another good point, Jeff. So they used to have a Marvel race, right?
Yes.
Then when they used to do Star Wars, they had the light side on one coast and the dark side on the other coast. So, but they have since retired both of those as well. That would be one I would expect. Marvel, I would expect to come back for sure. Yeah. Or I guess the springtime surprise, them bringing Star Wars back one year and then maybe making that the Disneyland version or something. So
change is good, right? It brings new interests, attracts new people that might be into it. So, awesome. So what for someone like me who's looking to possibly do one of these, how do you register for one of these? What's registration like? I have heard that the California one was like Taylor Swift tickets. It was hard to get into, but how does the registration work?
Well, I was gonna say everything's done online. Now we get in a nice little virtual queue. Anybody that's been at the parks, kind of has an idea what that's like with a few of the rides. But basically, it's organized chaos, in my opinion. You get in there and then you wait, and then you have the opportunity to register. Disneyland this year, I've never waited that long in a queue. I think it's just because there's not as many spots available. And actually, the Dumbo Double Dare challenge sold out before I could get registered, so I had to settle for just the half. And then by the time I got back in to do the 10K on its own, that was sold out. So it sold out pretty quick. Like I said, in my experience, that's the fastest I've been in a race that's sold out. But you've got to know going in who you're registering, what you're going to register for, be ready for something to be sold out and go to the next option. It's kind of like grab what you can and throw it in your basket and then check out as fast as you can. So in my opinion, and Alyssa can maybe tell about her experience, but having everything pre-filled out, having your Run Disney account already filled out with everything, but be prepared for potential, waiting to get into the actual race registration.
Yeah, it's kind of a crapshoot because what you get into the waiting room, even if you get in a couple minutes early, then when that 10 a.m. hits, then it's just everybody's assigned a random number. And so you could have been in there first, but it doesn't matter. So and then you kind of unfortunately have to wait. So
when you guys say shopping cart, you're talking about specific how many races you want to do then, right?
Yeah.
Is that basically what that means?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to pick one at a time. So you've got to get through all of the, say, half marathon registration. Then you've got to go back in and do the 10K, the 5K, if you want to do the challenge. So it's a little bit of a tedious process if you want to do all of the races in the weekend. So when I signed up for Dopey, it was easy. It was a one click, everything was in and I didn't have to worry about it. Now Dopey's not one that most people go for either. It doesn't typically sell out. But the 5Ks go quickly because they're very family friendly. And then the challenges, because of the medals, I think, those go pretty quickly as well.
I'm with you.
So what does something like this cost? You know, what is the cost associated with doing Run Disney? And I know that's probably a loaded question. It's probably depending on how many races you do. But, you know, give me
Yeah.
like from a 5K up to a marathon. What are the costs? How does that work?
So it does depend. So it has evolved over the years. I looked it up recently. When the marathon started back in '94, it was $50 to register. And that was it. So nowadays the 5K is around $100. But every registration you do, you get the race, you get the shirt that comes with it. So I'm wearing like the marathon shirt. So you get the marathon shirt that comes with it. You get the medal. You get the access to the expo. Like you get the food and drinks and everything they provide you all along the way. Am I missing anything, Kristin? Or what else they give you?
You know, you get a snack box at the end, you know, like,
Yeah.
which is pretty typical. But a
Yeah.
lot of, you know, it goes towards that race support,
Yeah. So I feel like an
along the
average.
course.
Yeah. So like a 5K if I ran it here in my hometown, probably like $25 to $45 depending what it is and stuff. Disney, it's going to be $100, but you're running through Disney, so
Yeah, you're running through Disney. You get access to those parks,
yeah.
and you get 2 shirts. It sounds like, or shirts.
You get a shirt. Yep.
You get a
I
shirt
mean,
per race plus a shirt for any challenges you do.
Yep.
So you get all that.
and some various snacks and food and sundries. I mean,
Yeah.
it actually
So
is not as bad of a deal as I anticipated. When you
but
said
now
100.
that's the 5K.
That's just the 5K. Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
the
how
half.
does it go up from there?
So I don't know what it is anymore, but I feel like when I signed up for the full marathon, I want to say it was around $300.
Yeah. I was gonna say the half I just signed up for is about, I want to say it was like 289.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, after taxes and everything.
Sure.
Now, Dopey is
That's a
pretty
lot.
close to $700. But with that, you have 6 medals. I mean, if you complete everything, well, actually, you get the 4 medals for each race, even if you don't finish. But then the 2 challenge medals. Then you have 6 shirts. And then, you know, marathon, I don't know, recently, a couple marathons, we got ears at the end
Oh, I
one
have.
year, as like the end, yep, kind of as a congratulations, you finished. So I'm trying to think what else. You know, a lot of people like, oh, well, here's a comparison. I did the Run Gasparilla down in Tampa. That actually was just finished this weekend. For 4 races there, it's a 5K, 8K, 15K, and half. They only charge $240.
Wow.
So when you think, and we're paying more than that for one half marathon at Disney. But what I like to tell people is it's in Disney. It's a completely different experience. And it is well worth, in my opinion, it's well worth the money to do because of
Oh,
that experience.
I forgot the one thing we didn't say. It includes character interactions, and
Oh, character, yep.
entertainment, and all that. So there's several along the course.
And the other thing we didn't, with the Wine and Dine half marathon, you get entry into the post race party, which is about, I think it's up to $90 right now for a ticket to that, which is kind of an added bonus to pick that race, is to get that. And that's access to rides, characters, the kitchens. Obviously, you have to pay for that food, but to have that extended access with lower weights is kind of a nice little perk.
Is that back in the convention center there, back in England in Epcot? Is that typically where they have that?
It's all Epcot.
It's all of Epcot.
Right, but I mean that there's
Oh.
the party at the end.
Oh,
Is that in that convention center between Canada and England?
so it's the whole park. So like the
Okay.
park will close at 9, and
Gotcha.
you can get early access in, I think about 7, or maybe it's even 4, but I think 7. And then all of the kitchens close between 9 and 10 while they're getting everybody else out. And then they reopen at 10
Gotcha.
for party guests. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay. It's the whole.
but you have the whole park. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a special event that you would have for, you know, any other time of the year. You guys get that for your race, basically.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. So again, perks.
Yeah, and how far in advance do you need to be registering for these things? Is it something that you can do last minute, or do these sell out?
Most of them will sell out nowadays. So there's occasionally times when spots will open up, but lately everything is selling out. So you have
You
to
got to do it
register.
on day one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Day one. I kind of did the math. So Disneyland actually was kind of an odd time. It's
Yeah.
11 months out. We did 11 months registration. Typically, I feel like they're about 8 months out. So
Yeah.
you're making a commitment anywhere from 8 months to a full year before this race.
Like,
And like, they sell out pretty quickly, except maybe Dopey. I think that's the only one I haven't seen sell out, unless it's a anniversary year.
right. So yeah, like Wine and Dine registration is in 3 weeks, and the race is the first weekend in November. So yeah, so about what's that, 8 months?
Yeah,
About
so you
eight
guys are
months, yeah.
doing this 6 to 8 months in advance.
Yeah,
Hmm.
which is so hard. The one thing I understand why they don't change it, but the one thing I wish Disney would change is like if you got an injury and you can't run, like there's literally nothing. You just kind of eat the cost. Like there's nothing you can do. So you can't. I think in the past they used to let you transfer it to another year or something, but they don't do that anymore.
Well, I know Run Disney is a whole division within Disney now. It used to be just
Mm-hmm.
part of like the events and planning team, a little subcircle, but now it's like their whole home department is just Run Disney, which is
Yeah.
a testament to how it's grown. So I've heard this term talked about. What is the expo? What does that mean in Run Disney terms?
Um, I don't know, a runner's dream of
Yeah.
like it's so many vendors who come in, and like not just running vendors. It is a lot of things. Like so, I buy things pretty much at every single expo, whether it's like a thing to hold my phone while I'm running, or one of those hydration belts, or different tanks, or compression socks and those things. But then they'll have like Pandora Jewelry has a whole thing there where they have specific running charms for your jewelry, or they have people like all this different stuff where you get to try out a bunch of things, and just kind of, yeah, I don't know, shop around while meeting like a lot of like really big names in like the running industry. Like Jeff Galloway has been there like every year the
Hmm.
last several years. He's a big name, and so just kind of getting to, I don't know, I don't even know how many vendors are in this expo. Over 100, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's got everything from shoes, socks, sport, like your support, if you need, like, I'm trying to think,
Like
sports
runner's
beans,
tape.
waffles,
Yeah.
runner's tape. They even have people taping,
Yeah.
like KT tape. They have a KT tape station, that runners can get taped at the beginning of the weekend. So, I mean, heck, Go Go Squeeze is one of their main sponsors, or has been in the past. So you see them at the expo too. So it's kind of a combination of, vendors that people will shop for running supplies, but then other vendors, trying to get their name out, because it is such a big community. Um,
And
you know,
this expo is throughout the whole racing weekend. Is at the start, the end? Where's it at? How does
yep.
people get into that? Because I've heard,
Uh,
I read somewhere that it's like now virtual queue to get into that thing.
For the
so
first,
that,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So you've got the basic expo with all of the vendors, is open to anybody. And that is going to be starts the day before races, through usually it's
The
the
day
day
before
of,
the last, until the
the day
day
before the
before the
last
last
one.
race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The virtual queue, though, is something new they started for, the Run Disney merchandise,
Okay.
which is a hot commodity, in the race world. And so I don't know, Alyssa, if you've had experience with that yet.
Not with the virtual
Um,
queue, no.
okay. So it was very interesting. So Wine and Dine, I think, was actually the first one this year that, did it, or maybe it's the first one I experienced. Got in the queue. I was really hoping I got an early one, which I did. Walked right up there to get into another queue, um, which I thought was kind of redundant. I'm like, I'm in one queue to get into another queue. Waited in that line, probably about 15, 20 minutes, and then I was able to get into the Run Disney merchandise area. This is where all the themed jackets, shirts, spirit jerseys, cups, replica medals, like I did it. The
Ornament.
tortsicles,
Yeah.
the ornaments, the magnets, like you name it.
Mhm.
Like Disney's put the logo and is going to sell it to you. Um, Now, I didn't love having to wait that extra time, but it went super fast. And by the time I got in there, it was like, wait, where is everybody? Because they were
Mhm.
limiting the number of people in there, that
Oh,
it didn't feel claustrophobic. It didn't feel like I was fighting somebody for this jacket size or that jacket, that shirt size or that item. And I actually stopped and I sat there and I kind of looked around and I looked at the lady and I was like, I'm like, can I just check out here? She goes, yeah, and they've added mobile checkout, which I know
Mm.
some of the stores in the parks use. I went click, scanned it. I literally walked out in like 10 minutes, which is the best experience I've had with the Run Disney merchandise area. And I got my annual pass discount on it. So
Very nice.
a lot of people knock it. They're like, oh, I have to wait in line. But really, they have it set up so well for a
Mm.
reason. They want your experience in there to be a good one. And they want you to be in and out quickly, but they want you to be able to look at the stuff and make your purchases without feeling rushed. So
Wow.
it'll
Where do
be
they
interesting to see how it goes
where do
as
they
they keep
hold the
working.
expo at? Is it in a convention center? Is it at
Wide
one of
World
the
of
parks?
Sports.
The Wide World of Sports. So the ESPN complex.
Mm-hmm. So they have
Yep.
there's signs everywhere. So you go into one of the convention centers to get your bib and your shirts and everything. Then you go to another one for the expo, and then there's another one for the Run Disney merchandise.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
but this is actually really good to hear, Kristin, because I haven't experienced it yet. But I always like when I think of that Run Disney merch building, I think of that scene in Jingle All the Way when Arnold Schwarzenegger is like ready to run to the store to go
Yep.
get that Turbo Man thing. That's literally what it used to be like.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so it does sound like this is an improvement.
It
Awesome.
very much is. The only thing that I will say is the line that wasn't there was over in the bib line. So we actually had a line for the bibs instead. Like I've usually never had to experience that. You usually just walk right in. We probably had a longer wait to get our bibs than we did on the outside, because they were only letting so many people in at a time. So they were very good about like, okay, it kind of felt like Genie Plus. Here's like 10 people. Okay, we're going to let a break, 10 people, kind of thing. They just didn't want that many people in one place to make it super crowded.
Makes
Right.
sense.
So, yep. And I think they'll keep working through that process because it is a process for
Yeah,
sure.
Disney always fine tunes everything.
Yeah.
So let's transition a little bit into an actual race weekend. I want you guys to kind of take me through what a typical race weekend looks like for those people watching who are thinking about doing it. Talk to me about how early you have to get up. How, do you take a bus versus driving? Start times for races. How do they keep you guys all corralled together? Tell me a little bit about what race day looks like and how that all works.
So I'd say the start of every race is pretty much the same. Then obviously it just depends on the distance that you're going. So most of them nowadays are starting at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And that's, before the crack of dawn. So that pretty much means like a 2 a.m. wake up call. I'm that type of person. I like to get there early. So I'm usually at the races by 3:30 at the latest to be able to go get my character pictures before the lines start and like go get in the front of my corral. So, again, I learned my lesson. I no longer take Disney transportation to the races because it is not been good lately. So I don't, Kristin, did you have something to say about that?
Well, I was going to say, I only take Disney transportation because anytime we go, we don't have our own vehicle.
Gotcha.
And I've heard of Uber drivers not being able to get in as well.
Dang.
Because but I'm one that I'm always on the first bus, like notorious. Like I will not be after what happened in 2014. That was a night race, one of the last night races for Wine and Dine. It was a weird setup. We had to take a bus to Epcot to get on a bus to go. It was our bus actually broke down on the side of the road. There were six. It was my husband and I and like four other runners, and we were pushing our time to get there. And I told my husband, I said, we're never doing this again. Now, granted, he's never ran with me again. But I am now always on the first bus just in case something happens. So, but depending too, I had an opportunity. We stayed at the Polynesian, for a race weekend. I utilized a bus. I utilized my own legs because I could walk to the 10K start. And then for the half, it was the monorail.
Nice.
So that was even better. When they allow monorail access for those resorts, hands down the best way to go because you just get on and get off and there's no traffic.
So I've heard you both say get there early, take the first bus. Do you run based on when you get there? Or do they give you a run time? They stagger you, or is that all in the registration? How early you register? How does that work?
No, it's all based on your predicted time. If you want to be in an early corral, they do require a proof of time. It is now set for the half at 2 hours and 15 minutes. It used to actually be a lot, you used to have a little bit more time, like 2:30 is what it used to be. But if you are between 2:15 and whenever, you're kind of randomly put into the farther corrals back. Corral A is going to be your faster, more professional runners. Actually, I think they have an elite group that goes very first. Like I think it's 15 to 20 runners that are elite. Those are the ones that are going to be doing sub 2-hour marathons.
They're gonna win.
They're gonna win. Those are your winners. And then they like to the athletes with disabilities are usually next, right? Like some of them.
They go right. Yeah, I think that it's changed in the past.
Yeah, they keep changing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's either right before Corral A, like a minute before them, or right after them. So
yes, yeah. But then so then you're going to get spread out, and that's something that people are like, they'll get in the last corral and they kind of panic. But within that corral, then they send you off, in smaller groups within that corral. So that's why when Alyssa says she goes and gets to the front of corral, it's really important if you're worried about your time. And those balloon ladies, which we'll talk about shortly, you want to be in the front of your corral. But yeah, you get there and then, you go see the characters. You've got usually a DJ, some entertainment, but there is a lot of sitting between that 3:30 and 5 o'clock start. The other thing I think, and Alyssa can agree, is they don't tell you the distance it takes you to get from where you're starting, like the starting line in the corrals, and your actual pre-race area. For marathon, it was 1.5 miles walk.
1.5 miles to my corral, then another half a mile.
Yes.
Up to
so it's 2 miles. Yeah. It was 1.5 miles to get to the corrals, and then another half a mile to get to the start line.
So for the people that are training for this, that's got to be tough to swallow when you have exertion energy that you're wasting to get to the start line and stuff. That's got to be tough.
So it's tough because it's so early in the morning, and like you're like, do I go get in a corral? Do I make friends with people who can save my spot so I can go to the bathroom? Like all those things. And it's tough when you've never done it before and you didn't know that that's what to expect. So like my very first half marathon was Princess, and I didn't know this, and I was in the very last corral, and we waited an hour before we started. And I had no idea, but that's because I was in corral N, so they had to let A through M go first. They do like each one every 5 minutes or so. So like that was nuts. But my pro tip of the day is, even if you're not going to beat that 2:15 time limit, still submit a proof of time. People don't know that. They think, oh, there's no way, I'm just not even going to bother. But then you automatically get put in that last corral. But like when I did the Princess Challenge years ago, I submitted a proof of time. It was like my proof time was maybe 2:40 or something. But knowing the 3.5 hours, I believe, is the cutoff. So I was just looking back at I got my race bib. So I was in corral C for the 10K and I for the half marathon. Whereas the year before I had been in N. So much, much better. And I feel like the crowds are much more manageable to run when you are further in too, because there's not as many walkers too. So if you did train, submit a proof of time. Like, pro tip.
It sounds like there's a lot of waiting involved with some of these races.
In the beginning.
In the beginning. But once you get going, you go. Like there's, once your group goes, like it's a start. And I think the excitement, they do fireworks at the start of every corral, not just for the A people, but every corral gets a little fireworks. And actually sometimes every group, depending on the size, which kind of gets your blood pumping again. You're like, okay, yeah, I'm really excited again after waiting 35 minutes to get moving.
And then you guys said during the races, you guys see characters, there's entertainment, all that stuff's going on during the race. Like, what does that look like? Are characters like cheering you on? They're playing entertainment for you to keep you motivated. What does that look like?
Yeah, it depends. It depends again on the course you do, and how many character meet and greets there are. It'll either be you can stop and take pictures with the characters, or they'll have like when you're going through Cinderella's castle. I remember all the Frozen characters were up on the castle balcony, like waving at you as you walked through. So yeah, so it's in through the parks, like legitimately, and like we ran through the castle. And it again depends. Marathon is the only one that goes through all 4 main parks. But and then so many DJs, or my favorite is always the Green Army Men from Toy Story that are like yelling at people to do push-ups if they're not running and stuff, like, but it's so fun. It's really, really fun.
So do the hardcore serious runners that do this, do they run in these races? And if they do they stop for the characters, or they blow by them and wait to the end? The ones that are really hardcore.
I think like the top 5 to maybe 10 don't stop, but
they don't stop.
But like Corral A people would stop, I feel like. So because then they have no lines for anybody. They can stop, snap the picture, and go. So
I asked that question because it's always interested me to know that, you know, if you're a hardcore runner, do you enter these types of races? Because there are so many cool things to do during it. I don't want to call them distractions, because that's not what Disney's about. They're giving you the Disney feel to a race. This is a Run Disney race, right? I just didn't know what the hardcore element of runners, do they run in these races, or is it typically not their vibe?
I'd say maybe the elite runners I think they enjoy doing it. A lot of times the elite runners even dress up and stuff. But
awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, elite runners like that fun too, right?
Right. Well, I think when they come into it, they have a different, you know, perspective. Like they're not going to maybe be running for the elite, like for the win, or
that's what I'm going for right there.
You know, they want, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it just for the fun and the experience versus like trying to, you know, do
that's what I was going for. So the elite runners go into this knowing, you know what, it's time to have some fun with my hobby and my passion here, and let's stop and take the pictures. That's what I was hoping to hear. And what type of entertainment's going on during there? I mean, is there bands playing and stuff? And what does that mean?
Well, I was gonna say, we've seen bands, we've seen DJs, we've seen kids band, or like middle school or high school bands, drum lines. I don't know the name of the choir that's always at the end at Epcot. They have a full blown, like, I mean,
a gospel choir, like
a gospel choir singing to you, which is absolutely amazing, because at that point you're almost to the finish line, and you just need that little burst of like motivation and encouragement. I mean, I still remember the DJ from mile 22 of my first marathon. You know, he was out there all by himself, and he was keeping, you know, the music pumping, like one runner at a time, because that's how it was. So I'm trying to think what else we've seen out there. A lot of characters.
I never stopped to this because I was slowing down, but outside of Animal Kingdom, you go into Animal Kingdom from like the back lot or whatever. They had a lot of animals actually out too, so that you can like visit with and stuff. But
yes, I remember that. Yeah, that they've done that before. We got to see some animals up close. The one thing on the characters, it's not necessarily characters you're going to see in the parks. You know, when we get to see some villains come out and play. We get to see some of the, you know, not as, you know, well, I'm trying to think.
The princes.
Who did we just see? The princes will come out. From Tiana, the alligator.
Oh,
he was.
Why am I blanking on his name?
I'm blanking on his name. But yeah, Tiana and Prince Naveen and the alligator were out just this last weekend, which I thought was pretty exciting. So you get the support characters, Baloo and King Louie. They're out. They were out and have been out several times. So, I can't remember his name.
I love it when the Fab Five are in different costumes you've never seen them before too. So like there was Jester, Goofy, and like Prince Mickey, and like things you would never see unless you did that race. Yeah. So I think that's.
You guys, the alligator from Tiana. You're talking about Louie.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
So, do you guys ever see like Disney celebrities or other celebrities in these races? Have you guys ever seen anybody running that's, you know, kind of big in the Disney world or just big in celebrity world?
Oh God, I'm blanking on his name. He, Sam from Lord of the Rings. Sean something.
Oh, Sean Astin?
Thank you. Yes, I've seen him several times at the Run Disney races.
Okay. I've read some of the celebrities like to do those races and such. You know, they have their own little. It's like entourage around them, but
it's interesting because it's kind of chaotic. So like you might see a celebrity, but not almost like register that they're there. If that makes sense.
or you see them during a race, you're so tired you don't care. You're just like,
Yeah.
I gotta focus. I gotta focus. I gotta focus.
Yep.
So
Well, and too, within the Run Disney community, if you're in any of the Facebook groups, there are a few people that are their own celebrity
Sure.
within those groups,
Michael
that are
Gabriel.
yes,
That's
yeah. I'm trying to think of a few that are people like, oh, guess who I saw? And it's just somebody who's, been giving the tips or leading these groups, and they've kind of become their own like Run Disney celebrity, which is kind of cool to see them in person too. I actually ran into one of the guys, I can't remember his name now, that would post, and yeah, he usually starts in B, but ends after me because he stops at he makes an effort to stop at every single character. So he's fast enough that he does, that he can do that, which is really kind of fun to hear his stories. So,
and that's the thing we kind of talked a little bit too. I think the Run Disney community gets really like tight. There might be 30,000 people running, but like for whatever reason, it's a tight knit community. And like there are those people that you're going to see who you may have never met in real life, but you see them posting so many times, and it's really cool to see that. A lot of them do start in A just because they have
So tell me how, after all this is done and you guys are crossing that finish line, obviously you have a big sense of accomplishment and you're doing it at Disney. What is that like? I mean, do they celebrate that? And talk to me about the medals and all that stuff. How does a race end?
whew. With a big sigh of relief. No.
Yeah, I bet.
Well, I mean, obviously it depends on, weather conditions and race conditions. A lot of times, you're getting to the end. Sometimes I've had some really good finishes where I'm like, sweet, I just knocked that out of the park. And then there's times where I'm like, I just barely made that due to the weather conditions. So, but finishing, they've got all the people handing the medals out and they're congratulate everybody. I think you walk by, it doesn't matter who they are. Congratulations, great job. They're so supportive. You don't get the confetti unless you win, but they still make you feel like you've accomplished a lot. And I think usually it's Carissa and somebody else at the end. They're calling out names and encouraging you across the finish line as well. So
that is really cool. There's that spot where you're I don't know, 100 feet before the finish line where you cross it. Your chip on your bib alerts them who you are, and they'll say a bunch of people's names, and stuff too. Like Alyssa, great job, you're there. Like Kristin, you're right at the finish line. Like that's a really cool thing that they've done for as long as I can remember. So
have you guys seen or been there for the last person that's crossed before?
I have. So they make such a big deal out of the last person crossing as they do the person who won the race. So all of the characters come out on there. They like walk with the person across the finish line, and that person gets their own cannon. So like it's like I've seen this poor lady. She must have hurt herself in the half marathon that I was watching one year and spectating. And you'll see there's all these like paramedics that are on the bikes who are following you. If the paramedics catch up to you, you get taken off of the course. And this lady, she's like the last one with the paramedics, and they wait like so many feet back, and then she's just like limping, and she gets to the finish line. And again, when you step across that one part of the course, they know your name, so then they can start cheering for you and like get really, really excited. And that was a really cool thing to be able to see. So you might be crawling across the finish line, but they'll make a big deal out of it at least. So yeah.
Makes me want to be the last one now.
I know, right?
in my first race.
Speaking of medals, though, Kristin and I are gonna play show and tell here, and I don't know how I can get all these on at once, but I have all of my Run Disney medals here.
Like that's just a
yeah. This is just something.
It looks like you're struggling. Are those heavy?
These are heavy.
They're pretty heavy, yeah. Well, like, okay, this is a good example. This was a wine and dine weekend.
Cool.
Those were the 3 different races, and then that was the challenge. So you can see that they each all have an individual theme for wine and dine. But the challenge ones always move a little bit, like they dangle, or let's see. Here's one. This is a goofy. Oh yeah, I like the marathon one.
Yeah.
This is Goofy challenge.
Wow, those are
so those move. Let's see. So that year that you did like the marathon, they went kind of old school.
That's right.
like on those. Oh, you know what I didn't bring? My Dopey.
Oh, probably the biggest earned
The
one.
biggest one. Yeah. I'm like, wait, where's my, now I'm really concerned because I'm like, where's
And
my Dopey?
and do they give you these things right as you cross, or do you guys have a process to get them?
Yeah, like 20 feet after you cross, you get it.
Yeah.
So
Now,
cool.
if you do the challenge one, especially, you do have to go through a separate like little area. You'll get your race one for that current one, but to get the challenge medal, they do make you go to a separate area because they have to confirm your qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
So they do, like if you're doing a 10K or half, they'll check to make sure you finish both of them before they give you the challenge medal. Same thing with Dopey. So the 5Ks that Disney puts on, they don't time those, which is really a good thing for family members or those that are just getting started. But for Dopey, you have the 10, the half, and the full, and they confirm that you finish all of those before you even get the Dopey medal. So,
So
which
you
is,
guys have used that terminology challenge a few times. What does a challenge mean? What is a challenge medal? What does a challenge mean?
So it's a combination of multiple races in the same weekend. So there's different. So like I did the glass slipper in 2015. That was the 10K and half marathon. So which is that one that is that?
This is Dope Goofy's race and a half. So it was for the half and the full.
Gotcha.
So I'm guessing the challenge medals aren't available until the very last race of the
Correct.
weekend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense for me now.
Yeah. The thing I want to mention too, so I have ran for a charity twice. And so if you do it for them, it's a little bit different. You don't register through Disney. You register through the charity who has a select number of bibs through Disney. And then you have to raise a certain amount of money for them. So I think I've raised a total of $2,500 for pediatric cancer research, and then often, at least for the ones that I did, you will get a medal from the charity too. So I did the glass slipper for them, so I got that, and then when I finished the full glass slipper, I got that on there, and then I also did the Star Wars one for them as well. So cool. Oftentimes they have their own medals too, which is just like a perk of doing it. So but that's a really cool experience, and that was something I learned at the expo. I didn't know that charities, you could raise money for them and run through Disney. So that was
well. I have Disney medal envy now after seeing all that. I just have my one Castaway Key 5K over here.
There you go.
That's the only Disney race that I've done, and that thing's rubber. You guys had medals, man.
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So we're coming up to the end of this conversation, and the best for last. You guys have to tell me what this balloon ladies means and what that is. You know, what is a balloon lady? What's the story behind this?
So my understanding is that it was not an official Disney thing in the beginning. So, but they had people who you have to keep an average of a 16-minute pace per mile. So, which for most people is totally doable. So it could be a run sometimes, a speed walk, whatever. But they're the ladies who wear balloons on their costumes. They purchase the balloons and everything. They even purchase their own admission into the registration and into the race. Yeah. But they are keeping an exact 16-minute pace. They're the very last people to start each race. But if they pass you and you don't keep up with them, then you are taking off the course. So, but they made themselves known because of the balloons. It's not hard to miss. So
but everybody fears them.
Yeah, but it's funny because they're the nicest people.
They're the nicest people. Yeah.
So they started off kind of their own little group, and Disney's adopted them as part of their culture now. That's something that they. So you, as nice as they are, you don't want to see these balloon ladies getting near you.
No. So we were talking about the January 2020 marathon, which was a record high heat index. It was hotter than anything I've ever experienced. And it's funny because it was probably 90, but it was like a heat index of like 110. It was terrible. And so I remember I pulled out of Animal Kingdom, went around this big long curve, and I looked to my right and I'm like, oh my God, there they are. So, because you can see them, you see the balloons, and I'm like, I have maybe half a mile ahead of them. So if you do your homework, you can find out who the balloon ladies are, what their bib numbers are, and you can get alerts about where they are on the course. But that particular race, they started at 10 minutes late because the buses kept running late and there were a bunch of people who weren't there yet. And so they started 10 minutes late, which meant that they tried to get everybody through the start line quicker, which means my buffer in getting to the start of the corral had shortened a whole lot. So I was only 6 minutes ahead of them, which I got way further ahead of them once I got running and stuff. But then when I'm slowing down, because it's like a heat index of 100 degrees, they pulled back up because, again, they're really maintaining a strict 16-minute pace.
And it's just occurring to me as you guys talk about this and the humidity of some of these races that the weather doesn't just mean like it could be raining and stuff. Like it could just be beautiful out, but it could be 100% humidity because we are in Florida, right? And we are talking about Florida, and you got summers that are, hotter than heck in Orlando. So that weather relation could be heat index, right?
Yep.
Well, and for my first marathon weekend, I just strictly did the marathon race, but it was about 40 degrees, I think, for the 5K, and it progressively got warmer. It was 70 something by the time we had the marathon. So a lot of people, when you're doing the full weekend, the challenge, you're literally packing for every potential weather chance. I know. And then I think was it the year before that?
It was freezing.
It froze it out. Like people were going to Walmart and Scheels and the running stores in Orlando to get cold weather stuff because it had never been that cold and it was a quick cold snap overnight. Like they weren't prepared for it. So that's a pro tip. If you are doing a race weekend, you come prepared for every possible weather. I've learned to go to like Goodwill or look for sweatshirts or blankets cheap at Walmart when they're on sale to have with at the start of the corrals because it can be kind of chilly, but you might not want like that sweatshirt, 2 miles in or those gloves. So I bring cheap gloves, usually something from Goodwill or a sweatshirt that I'm like done wearing. I'll take it off before the like race starts, and then Disney in the past, and I think still continues to collect those and then donate them around the Orlando area.
Cool.
Which is really a cool thing because people are like, I don't want to lose. I'm like, just take it out, prep something you don't mind giving away. And I've seen people give nice stuff away though, like, because then it ends up being too hot and they're not prepared. So somebody's got a really nice runner's jacket or runner's gloves. But that's something, not everybody prepares for. And I know the first few races, like the first race I did, it rained and I had squishy feet the entire time. Learned that when it's going to rain like that, you wrap with duct tape, which I was like, oh, I've never thought of that before. So I've learned a lot of tips over the years. This last wine and dine, it rained for the first 3 miles, and then it started to get warmer and the humidity went up, and I never dried off like because of the humidity. I crossed the finish line. I'm like, it looks like I was sweating, and I was like, no, that's just rainwater, like, and sweat and everything together. Princess weekend, this last weekend was foggy. I know a lot of people were saying, they couldn't see Epcot, but they said, they turned around, they couldn't see the people behind them. And I was like, well, that could be good motivation. A lot of times when you're out there, I know for me, I like to kind of keep up with the same people and kind of stick with that group, especially if I'm running by myself and I don't have a running partner with me. And so that would kind of mess with some people. I think training wise, they might be like, oh, wait, where's my person? Like, Alyssa, if you ever leapfrog with people, I do it a lot at Disney. I like to try and keep up with people. But yeah, the weather is something that is, I think in Florida is probably the hardest to predict race wise. I mean, here in Kansas, like right now, I mean, it's going to be probably 35 to 50 and we can be pretty steady with that. But in Florida, I feel like you've really got to prepare for every possibility.
So you brought up a good point too, the people you try to keep up with. So they do have pacers the whole, like every 15 minutes, I want to say. So it could be for like the full marathon, there would have been a 4-hour pacer, a 4:15, a 4:30, all the way up until 7 hours I think is the max. So so they have that to just kind of help you, kind of give you a gauge where you're at, so that if you are concerned again about those balloon ladies, you kind of know like how much of a buffer that you have. So that can also instill again some fear. So when you're like, oh crap, like I really got to keep it up. But then again, they're so encouraging. So even when I fell behind the last pacer before the balloon ladies, like there was a bunch of staff saying, you're 4 minutes ahead of the end. Like you're this many minutes ahead. So just to kind of keep you moving. So as long as you maintain that 16-minute, you were fine. And even it was like I was backstage Epcot right before you got to the finish line when the balloon ladies finally caught up to me, but I was like done at that point. And I knew I was going to finish, so it was okay. But even they were like, you guys got this, or just around the corner. So like the whole community is good. And there have been times I've ran with complete strangers that I didn't know for a mile, half a mile, whatever, just to kind of like not be bored, like have someone to talk to.
So these balloon ladies are obviously fit individuals who are maintaining that 16-minute pace. They're specifically designed to just do that.
Yep.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting. And it's funny because I was there for one of the races this past January when I dropped off my son for the college program. We were in the parks, and I kind of noticed that people, the ones that didn't want to give up some of their expensive layers, had them wrapped around their waists, and you know, they looked kind of funny with some of this stuff. Those are probably the people that didn't want to give their stuff away, right? They just okay. That makes sense now. Well, this has been great. This has been super interesting. You guys have any closing comments? I've been wanting to ask what this plastic cheese means.
Well, let's talk about Cheesegate 2019 real fast.
There you go.
If you want to make a lot of people upset at Run Disney, you take away the cheese. Disney learned after 1 year, you don't take away the cheese from these people.
So you either you love it
Either
because
love it.
you just ran a bunch of miles and you don't really care, but then like when you really think about it, it's literally just plastic cheese.
Yeah.
So what's the significance of cheese in running? Is it something that
nothing really, except that everybody loved that when you got your box of food at the end, it had the plastic cheese in it, and then there was that year that they took it away and there was an uproar about it.
They gave us like shelf stable hummus, and I didn't even eat it. I like looked at it and I was like, nothing is shelf stable about hummus, and threw it in the trash. And I still remember the year it came back, the next race that I was there, I literally took a picture and was sending to my best friend because she'd run the races and she knew about Cheesegate, and she's like, because she was like, what are they doing? I mean, she'd only done like 2 races with me there, but she knew. And so Disney learned real fast. You don't take away the cheese from the runners who just got done, running some of their best races, for sure.
But like that's the thing is like again, it's like once I feel like Kristin, you tell me if you agree with this. Once you do one Run Disney race, you get hooked. And you just keep coming back for more. So even though sometimes I complain, I like worry about the balloon ladies or I complain about how hot it is, like I would have never done a marathon except for a Disney marathon because it was such an amazing experience. And I joke that I'll never do a full marathon again, but if I had to, I would do the Disney marathon. So like, because it was a great experience. And I'm excited because I haven't ran since that marathon because I had a kid shortly after and then COVID hit and all that stuff. But I'm excited to get back into like the Run Disney community and hopefully cross my fingers do wine and dine this year. But so again, I kind of tell you, Jeff, we're kind of going into all the nuances and the nitty gritty of it, but in reality, it's such a fun experience.
No, this has been an awesome education on Run Disney, and it does make me a lot more interested to do one of these upcoming races. It sounds like it's Hunger Games to get registered for some of these games, or these races, but if I do run, I'm going to have you ladies with me because I ain't going to know what to do and where to be.
Please.
So
come on. Yes. I would love it.
Well, we normally do a little bit of news at the very start, but I really wanted to get into this. But I do want to bring up one thing in the Disney world that was kind of made official today. I don't know if you guys have been following the news, but Reedy Creek has officially been dissolved.
I did not see that.
Yes. Today was the actual day. It was signed earlier today by Governor DeSantis.
Wow.
Love him or hate him, it happened, and he took the whole stance that Disney took, with the with the, I don't even want to call it what they call it in the news, but he took that stand seriously and took it as a standoff, and he followed through. So it's now called the Central Florida Tourism Oversight Board.
Oh, geez.
That is what the new name for Reedy Creek District is. Now, nobody knows what's to come of it. Nobody knows what's going to happen. I would imagine not very much, probably for the immediate future. But DeSantis promises some changes, being that he's got the majority of the board members now from the state of Florida on it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. He not only did it, but he did it in a way where there's still a district and the constituents and the people in the local area are not hit with the taxes.
Yeah.
So what is your guys' opinion on it? And, what do you guys think? Is it going to be, more for us to pay as park goers in the future? I mean, DeSantis says it's not going to be, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
They always say one thing is not going to happen, and then it happens exactly like they said it wasn't going to. Right. So, I mean, I guess I get both sides of it. I like the Disney bubble. I like that they handle everything themselves, and I think that's what's created them to be such like the top of the line in terms of service and experiences and everything. So I just hope that this doesn't ruin that. But I don't know. It's a toss-up. I mean, it's done.
My personal opinion, this is the single biggest reason that Chapek was removed. That his stance he took on this and what he caused as far as the uproar and the head-to-head battle with the state of Florida. I personally didn't think he'd done that bad of a job as CEO from a day-to-day perspective. I get that he was a scapegoat for some things, but I think this in the end is what led to his, departure. And I don't think Iger does that. I don't think he makes the comments that Chapek did. So I think if they could go back in time, they would have told him not to keep his mouth shut on the whole bill that he was disputing or Disney was disputing, but it is what it is. I'm going to be interested to see what happens over time. I mean, think about when you drive around Disney World campus, you see those Reedy Creek signs everywhere. They're now going to be changed. They're going to be changed to this new Central Florida PS name that they have now. So, I mean, I hope they don't change the fire department with those, red and white bricks and all that stuff. But there's going to be some changes coming up. So I guess in Disney fashion, sit tight and hold on to your hats in the ride. It's going to be interesting. But I thought we should bring that up.
Yes.
Yeah.
In a future episode, we'll, I guess, discuss what is happening with it.
Yeah, when John finds his phone, we'll get his opinion on it and really get into it, because this is something I know that's really interesting to John. So, well, guys, thank you so much for giving me an education on Run Disney. And Kristin, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Guys, we're all Moments of Magic travel agent, and we would love to help, plan your trip from Disney World to Disneyland to do these races, Alani, the Disney property in Hawaii, Adventures by Disney, and Disney Cruise Line. We do them all. Yeah. So,
Kristin, is there anything you specialize in or that you, really do as a traveler?
All things Disney. All things Disney.
Got it.
So
all the above.
I mean, it's all of that. All of the above. I'm going on my first cruise in May on the Wish. I'm going to spend a few days on the Wish. So before taking my kids and my family, leaving them home.
Nice.
So that way I can get the full experience, be able to bring that back to our clients and our, friends and family that need some help planning that.
That's awesome.
And Kristin, you've been with us since 2020. So why don't you give us all your social handles for people that want to contact you?
Okay. So Facebook and Instagram is Kristin. It's Kristin MONT. So super simple, but I spell out my name because most people spell it wrong. So Kristin with 2 I's. And then let's see, email, obviously, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, is just ksmith@momentsofmagictravel.com. So pretty easy. So.
Awesome. Alyssa, how do people get a hold of you?
Facebook, Alyssa MOMT. Instagram at Magic and Adventure, and then email is alyssa@momentsofmagictravel.com.
Awesome. And I'm Jeff Armbruster. I think I might have been here the longest. I've been here since 2017, I think. I think I'm getting ready to enter my 7th year. It's crazy how fast time flies by when you're having fun. On Facebook, I'm Jeffrey Armbruster, Moments of Magic Travel Agent. On Instagram, Travel with Jeffrey. And then my email is jeff momentsofmagictravel.com. And all of our emails, make sure you put the S on there, moments with an S of magictravel.com.
Smart.
This has been Jeff Armbruster on behalf of Alyssa and Kristin for the Universe of Magic podcast. We'll see you guys in our next episode. Take care.
Bye.